line right around 3.5, I believe. Let me check the latest line at FanDuel as we are speaking and breaking down this number. Super Bowl 56. Oh, it's out to 4 according to mine. Now, maybe different depending on which state you're in. But the Rams are out to a 4-point favorite, over under 48.5. It's 13 days away. Any early lean, any early read for you, as the Rams will be playing at home for a second straight year? We'll have a home team in the playoffs in the Super Bowl after never having it happen before.
So I think the number is extremely fair. The folks at FanDuel, their look-ahead number here was 3.5. That's actually where they opened it once we knew for sure that it was going to be the Bengals against the Rams. The Rams took a little bit of money driving it out to 4, to your point. And I think it's always interesting, and we'll, of course, talk about this in greater detail. When you look at the Super Bowl, this is the time of year where books actually find themselves rooting for the favorite to win, but not to cover, because typically what will happen is people that like the Rams will lay the points. People that like the Bengals will go say the hell with it. We're not betting them plus the 4. We're just going to bet them on the money line, meaning that if the game were to fall 1, 2, or 3 for the Los Angeles Rams, books would be able to put themselves in a very advantageous position. But for me, I look at this total. I think we're going to see the total tick down a little bit more than it's already started. So when you're shopping around trying to find a first half number, if you're able to get a 24, that would be what I would encourage folks to do, as I think that number will move to 23.5. We talk all the time about key numbers. 24, one of the most important in the first half that's out there. And when you look at these two coaching staffs, there is a high level of familiarity because Zach Taylor comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. Both of these guys will have pretty good indications of what their counterpart on the other sideline wants to do. And I think we've seen, Sean McVay commit to the ground game the same way that we got a little bit of taste from that in Zach Taylor. Even when they found themselves behind the 8 ball early against Kansas City, it was Joe Mixon putting together his best performance in 6 games. So with 2 quarterbacks making their debut in their first ever Super Bowl, I think we could have a slow and stodgy start. So first half under would be the angle that I would tack 13 days before kickoff.
What else stands out to you about the Super Bowl? Early, like we said, 13 days away. Obviously, there are a lot of casual gamblers that step in for the Super Bowl. What's a mistake that you see a lot of people make in the Super Bowl, maybe repetitively year after year?
I think when you're looking at the prop market, kind of figure out exactly what you feel comfortable betting on this football game. And there's so many different ways to attack it. I mean, if you don't have strong convictions about who wins the game between the Rams and Bengals, or you don't know exactly how this game is going to unfold as far as the total is concerned, I mean, you can identify 1 to 2 players where you think that there are mismatches out there on the field, whether it's CJ Uzoma, if he's available, dealing with the MCL sprain that kept him from finishing against the Chiefs, matched up against the soft interior of that Rams defense, or trying to figure out if you just want to bet on Odell Beckham Jr. or Jamar Chase. I think one of the things that makes the Super Bowl so much fun, and, going back to my time behind the counter at Caesars, is we seemingly had a decision on nearly every snap of the game.
Yeah.
So there's money changing hands from the coin toss through the opening kickoff, through, every punt, every penalty, every challenge. It truly makes for a legitimate sweat if you want to go about attacking the game that way. So rather than looking at some of the top line markets, this is the one opportunity you'll have during the season to really drill down, figure out where you think you can find a mismatch, and spend 2 weeks doing your homework to try and find one weakness as far as you're concerned that odds makers haven't been able to identify, especially for those Bengals and Rams fans that have watched their team every single week throughout the season.
What do you think about the value of being at home? I think the standard is now the Bengals are not flying in till Thursday. It's not the usual craziness sort of festival of excess because of COVID, even for a second straight year. We'll see how exactly everything breaks down in LA. I'll be out there all next week. I'm genuinely curious how that's going to go. But is there an advantage in your mind, Furman, to being at home and being able to play in the home stadium? We certainly saw the Bucs just take it to the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl in their home stadium, Tampa Bay. Is that likely to continue? How would you assess it?
I think you do have to account a little bit for home field advantage, but I mean, the Rams didn't have home field advantage in the NFC Championship. I mean, with the Sea of Red, it almost gave you that vibe of a neutral atmosphere. So maybe you're giving the Rams a 0.5 point max as far as home field advantage is concerned in this spot. I do believe when you're a creature of habit and you can sleep in your own bed for the build up to the game and kind of go about your normal routines, you're driving the same routes, that can pay dividends. But at the same time, there can also be a lot of distractions. for players with families that are dealing with some of that, in their own home city, you can't put all of that stuff on the back burner like the Bengals, who, when they jump on that plane the Thursday before the big game, will see this as a business trip. And I think for a Rams roster where there are a lot of holdovers who were there a couple of years ago when they came up well short against the Patriots in a game that they looked like they weren't ready for whatsoever, they'll learn from that experience. They'll apply it to this particular outcome here, but you still have a starting quarterback making his Super Bowl debut in Matthew Stafford. You have a starting quarterback making his Super Bowl debut in Joe Burrow. And again, in this game, you can make the legitimate case that Joe Burrow has played on stages of this magnitude during his time at LSU in the college football playoff and the national championship, where Matthew Stafford is learning a little bit as he goes. But I did find it hysterical when you look at Matthew Stafford, who's been much maligned for some of his playoff shortcomings. When he finally ends up with a team that's capable and competent from the coaching standpoint and talent around him, suddenly Matthew Stafford has more wins in the postseason than the Dallas Cowboys do since 1997.
Yeah, how crazy is that if you're a Lions fan? Because for most teams, the question is, hey, what do we have to do to get an elite quarterback? Arguably, the Lions have had an elite quarterback for the last, whatever it is, 10 or 12 years, and they still couldn't win with him. How sick to your stomach do you have to be if you're a Lions fan waking up today?
I mean, you've been sick to your stomach for how many years since they had a playoff win? Were we at 40 or 50 or thereabouts?
When you look at the Lions, 1950 something, I think.
That's what it is. It's one. You're right. I forgot. They won back in
1990
or 91
or something. I think Barry Sanders had one playoff win ever.
I mean, let's look at the players that have never realized their full potential, that have been transcendent talents. I'm not going to put Matthew Stafford in that bucket. Obviously, we'll see if he can win in 2 weeks and if he's able to build on his legacy. But Barry Sanders was never able to get them where they needed to go. Calvin Johnson wasn't. It's organizational failures more than anything else. And I'm not sure if it's coaching, if it's the front office. There are so many different areas to point your finger. But to your point, you're exactly right. All of these teams say they're a quarterback away. Well, clearly the Lions were everything else away because Matthew Stafford, given what we've seen so far this postseason, wasn't the weak link. But I do think the Rams and everybody else that they've given him as far as weapons, the defense, their ability to get to the opposing quarterback. I mean, there are clearly more difference makers than just one position when it comes to getting to the Super Bowl and ultimately winning one of the National Football League.